Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess some of your comments about the ENGOS and the Pew Foundation, you've mentioned it several times now. It really begs more questions about how DFO works with ENGOS. Meanwhile, we've wanted Department of Fisheries and Oceans to be working with our anglers and to have a seat at the table, but they're being ignored. I'll get into the study. The study is here. The part that we're referencing is a Monterey Bay Aquarium, of all things, Seafood Watch report. And I'll just, what are our American colleagues saying about it? So an American ENGO, the California Bay Seafood Watch, and the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch gave the red rating to the U.S. and Canadian lobster industry, saying they aren't doing enough to protect the Atlantic right whale, as we've been talking about. But what concerns me always, especially about marine protection areas or marine protected areas, is when it's politicized. And we've seen it politicized on the West Coast, we've seen it politicized on the East Coast. And so what are the Americans saying about this particular report? Well, the main Democrats and Republicans, and I'm citing an article from the Spectrum News this year, just a few weeks ago, Maine Democrats and Republicans blasted Seafood Watch for its rating. Seafood Watch is misleading consumers and businesses with this designation, Governor Janet Mills, a Democrat, said in a statement. Generations of Maine lobstermen have worked hard to protect the sustainability of the lobster fishery, and they have taken unprecedented steps to protect right whales. Efforts that the federal government and now Seafood Watch have failed to recognize. It goes on to reflect on a Republican's opinion. Republican former Governor Paul LePage also said in a statement, as governor, again, I will push back at organizations falsely attacking our lobster industry, as well as the Biden administration's destructive regulatory policy aimed at destroying the livelihoods of our fishermen over the false notion they are harming whales. And so it sounds eerily familiar to what's happening to our anglers on the West Coast around salmon. When we know they're plentiful in the water, but there's still closures that have been mandated by this Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So what do our Canadians have to say about this? Well, I'm quoting an article called Blaming Canada's Lobster Industry for North Atlantic Right Whales Plight Unfair. It is plain fact that there has never been a single documented right whale death linked to Canadian lobster gear in recent history, as was reflected by my colleague's question before. There are several reasons why lobster fishing represents a lower risk in Canada. It's an inshore fishery conducted mostly in shallow waters of less than 20 fathoms. A fathom is 6 feet, so about, do the math, where the right whales are rarely observed. So we're talking about 120 feet. You referred to that. We already know that. The whales just aren't there. The article continues. For more than 150 years, North America's lobster fishery has proven itself to be one of the most sustainable wild fisheries on the planet. For all of us on both sides of the Canada-U.S. border who care deeply about its future, and the path forward is clear. And I'll remind the people listening today, there's people connected with these jobs that are lost as a result of a poor scientific report put out by this organization. Tens of thousands of fishing families, and I'll repeat that, tens of thousands of fishing families, plant workers, and hundreds of coastal communities depend on setting the record straight and winning this fight. Lastly, second, we need to stand up and push back on what Seafood Watch represents. Activism masquerading as science. And we just had a whole study talking about that exact thing. They lumped all fixed gear fisheries into one basket with blatant disregard of the facts and lacking peer review validation. Cooler heads must prevail. We need more science and less politics, more binational collaboration and less finger pointing, ensuring a sustainable future for the right whale and addressing the threats facing them. Knows no borders and needs to be addressed binationally. So I guess my question to you, why would the Department of Fisheries and Oceans be working with angles like the ones mentioned and you even referred to, rather than the anglers themselves?
Thanks for the question, and we absolutely do work very closely with the fishing industry on these issues. We have regular consultation with them. We're engaged with them in various whale safe gear trials. We work with them on our Ghost Gear initiative. Indeed, they participate in some instances in marine mammal response activities.
I can speak from a person from the West Coast. When we talk to the angling community, we ask, what's the relationship like with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans? And they say it's non-existent. They used to have a seat at the table where they were consulted regularly. Now they're completely disregarded. And it appears the place at the table at DFO is now taken up by the ENGOS, as you've mentioned.
Your time has gone over. I'm sorry.